I don't know how you can fit Santner in the team while still playing Tim.
The ferry from Wellington to Picton at the top of the South Island is the most beautiful public transport route in the world.
Not only have they enjoyed the delights of New Zealand on the field, because they've played very, very well off the field. They've played some nice golf courses, spent some time in Queenstown. Ben was at the races with Brendan just before England officially came out.
Welcome to the third and final edition of the Following on New Zealand podcast, brought to you with talkSPORT and 100% pure New Zealand. Remember, go to newzealand.com to plan your New Zealand adventure. We've had one of our own today. We've had a walking tour around Hamilton, which you can see the highlights of a little bit later. But talking of highlights, Tommy, just being in New Zealand is a highlight in itself. We've had experiences in Christchurch and Wellington, both of which we've been to before, but still really, really special. There's a sense of reassuring familiarity about going to places you've been to before. But I always find with New Zealand, they get even better.
Yeah, they get better. It's just a relaxed manner. I come from the northeast of England, so the sort of festival feel of walking to, going to a cricket ground and what the cricket ground looks like. That's not in a city. That's what I love about the likes of when you're in Christchurch. When you go to Hagley and then you come here to Hamilton, you can basically walk to the hotel, and you go in and you walk from the hotel. You go in and you just see green grass everywhere. I mean, it's beautiful, and the different side of it when you go to Wellington with the bigger city. But no, I totally agree. When you go somewhere that you do know off the back of your hand, and you've only been here a couple of times, it just shows you what a beautiful place it is.
We are obviously not going to Auckland this time, but for anybody who's coming to New Zealand, they may well land in Auckland and the Bay of Islands, and they can go up the Sky Tower, bungee jump off that.
Me and Katie have been to Auckland. We had a little boat trip. I mean,
excursion.
We had a little excursion to Auckland to pick a camera up. But yeah, it was nice. Obviously, it's a great city.
And then you go south, and I have to tell you that the ferry from Wellington to Picton at the top of the South Island is the most beautiful public transport route in the world, certainly that I've experienced anyway. You just can't believe that it's a ferry. When you go through the fjords of the top of the South Island, absolutely spectacular. And then you go all the way to the bottom of the South Island, of course, and Milford Sound, and see the Southern Lights. So cricket tours are pretty jam-packed these days. But unfortunately, we've seen and had some of those experiences on previous tours. It's the home of jet boating, and also the camper van, the Maui van, drive around the island the two islands, the North Island and the South Island. There is so much on offer. You need to bring your family. Probably grandkids now.
It's grandkids now.
Yeah. On a purely family holiday rather than a cricket
holiday. I missed the kids coming to this part, because when I came, I'd retired from one-day cricket, so I was only a short trip this time. So there wasn't time to bring the family. But yeah, it is a great place to visit. Me and Scott have played golf. We played at golf in Christchurch. Played Christchurch and then Clearwater, beautiful. And then we played Royal Wellington in Wellington, where Dylan, the pro and the director of golf, Dylan, looked after us superbly well. Young lad in the shop, brilliant. The food was fantastic on the terrace. Check out our talkSPORT's YouTube site, our social media site, and you'll see how good the food was. I'm a food connoisseur, as you can see. But golf was good, and hopefully we'll be the same here before we go. We'll get a nice 4-day game. England will hopefully wrap up the series 3-0. And we might get another chance to go on a walking tour when it wasn't raining, Manners.
One thing that we're going to do tomorrow is visit Hobbiton, and this is a place that is it's a point of pilgrimage for fans of Lord of the Rings and Tolkienites. It's only 45 minutes from Hamilton, and I know that you'll be playing another round of golf at Hamilton Golf Club, but Katie and I will be going to Hobbiton, so we'll be able to tell you all about that. I have been before, Katie hasn't, and it is really, really unusual. You associate that kind of thing with a movie set. You think they just sort of put it up and dismantled it after the films, but it's actually, Hobbiton's a real place, and some of the houses and the little caves that the people in Lord of the Rings live in are actually real. Okay, there's also skiing. Queenstown. Actually, before we get on to reflections on the Test match at the Basin Reserve, you have been to Queenstown several times. It is perhaps the epicentre, is that right, of tourism in New Zealand? Would you say that?
I think it's one of the best places on earth. I mean, it is. It's you've literally got everything there. You've got the cricket ground right next to the airport. You've got the golf courses. Golf courses are stunning. Scenery. I mean, just the slowness of nature, of life around Queenstown is unbelievable. Talk about the teams. England didn't fly from Wellington to Hamilton. They came on a road trip through New Zealand. I mean, their captain's Ben Stokes. He lived in New Zealand for the first, bit of his life. Brendan McCullum is probably king of New Zealand at this moment in time. So they know all the best places to stop. And I think, by all accounts, spoke to Paul Collingwood a little bit earlier. They've had a brilliant trip up from Wellington to Hamilton. So not only have they enjoyed the delights of New Zealand on the field, because they've played very, very well off the field. They've played some nice golf courses, spent some time in Queenstown. Ben was at the races with Brendan just before England officially came out. So I think by the time this Test match series finishes, if they win 3-0 when they fly out of Auckland, I would imagine there'll be a few of these boys not too happy about going home, other than it's Christmas.
I think that's just a fabulous piece of innovative captaincy in many ways. I mean, there are young players presumably are on their first visit to New Zealand, like Shoaib Bashir, and a few others. We probably haven't been here before, so they might not have got to see very much of the country had they not done that road trip. So I just think that is another feather in Ben Stokes' captaincy cap. Right, talking of epicentres, and the Basin Reserve is the spiritual home of New Zealand cricket. And England went there, and as sometimes happens to them at Lord's, they gave the home side a absolute hammering. I mean, it works. The Lord's effect sometimes works in the favour of visiting teams, because they know that they might only get one visit, one Test match there, and they often raise their games. And England have taken some beatings over the years. They've also won some Test matches, but so England go to the Basin Reserve and give the home side a hammering. What are your takeaway memories? Atkinson's hat-trick, Jacob Bethel's 96, Joe Root's 36th Test 100.
Yeah, I mean, all of that and more, they all sort of contributed. I mean, it was a 3-day game. And I mean, to keep going on about how good New Zealand is, it feels as though it's been 6 weeks since that Test match finished in the Basin. So, no, I think the 2 Test matches so far, I think we've seen all contributors to what has been 2 good Test match victories, with the exception of Crawley. So I think if England were to win this Test match, Zach Crawley was to get runs, I think Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes can leave New Zealand and go, you know what great trip that was. Not, on the field, we were ruthless, we were professional, we were fantastic. From a performance point of view, everybody put their hand up and did something special throughout that 3 Test match series. And off the field, we've had a great time. So yeah, I think the route 100, I think, went underneath the radar a little bit. I think the Atkinson hat-trick also went under, the way Carse bowled in 1 or 2. But for me, it'll stand out for them 3 days of the brilliance of Harry Brook. He was awesome. He really was on a wicket which nobody else really on the first 2 innings of that game looked as though they could get a real grasp of how to bat on it. Ollie Pope with the exception. Harry Brook, I mean, 123 out of 280 tells you everything, and that was a difference for me. As the wicket got flatter and I got a little bit easier to bat on, then both sides got a little bit closer, but a bit of genius and a bit of brilliance. Joe Root says he's the best player in the world. I disagree with Joe. I think Joe's the best player in the world, but Harry Brook has now just gone above him by 1 ranking point to number 1 in the world. So, I mean, there you go.
Before we came out on tour, we had to sign a disclaimer form from New Zealand Tourism asking us whether we were prepared to bungee jump, parachute, hot air balloon, mountain bike, how far we were prepared to deep sea fishing in the ocean. We haven't actually managed to do all of those things, but it gave us an idea of what was available. I mean, there are more genteel walks to be had, and as we saw, wine tasting and craft beer tasting. There are also gourmet fine dining tours of New Zealand, so you don't have to be super active. There is a lot that this country offers, I can assure you. You're listening to the third and final edition of the Following on New Zealand podcast, brought to you by talkSPORT and 100% Pure New Zealand. You're listening to the Following on New Zealand podcast with talkSPORT and 100% Pure New Zealand. Let's talk, Harmy, about the tour from a New Zealand perspective, just briefly, and then look ahead to what we might expect at Seddon Park in Hamilton. It was lovely to see Tom Blundell score some runs. There were a couple of unforgiving Black Cap supporters who did say, well, he didn't score any runs when they mattered. That game was lost, and he's gone out there and scored 100, which is harsh, but has an element of truth to it. This is Tim's... No?
No, I get it, but I look at the other side and go, I mean, you get beat. Tom Blundell nicks off, gets out for naught, and you get beat by 450 runs. I mean, yes, they weren't. They're not. They were tough runs because of the environment that we're in. I mean, Bryden Carse wasn't bowling slowly because Atkinson bowled well. So did Shoaib Bashir bowl really well. So there were runs that obviously didn't affect the game in a way of positive for New Zealand, but I wouldn't say they're not like dead rubber runs or I mean, can't really put my finger on what the word I'm trying to use here, but I don't think they were.
They weren't soft.
I don't think
I'm not saying they
runs.
were soft runs, but they weren't meaningful runs.
Yeah, but what are meaningful runs? They're test runs. They're test wickets. Anybody wants to say to me, the opposition need 50 to win. I mean, you let the batters bowl. No, I want to bowl. I want to bowl. I'm going to lose the game, but I can get test wickets. I can run up. I get 2 test wickets. Goes on a column. Affects your career standards. So for me, I don't think there were soft runs because of the way England were playing. If he gets out for next to naught and they get beat by 450, that's embarrassing for New Zealand. He brought a little bit of fight, a little bit of respectability to that fourth innings. Yes, they were always going to get beat, but not for me as. I'm not going to say they were soft runs.
No, I agree. Definitely not soft runs. Anyway, let's move on to the New Zealand team. We'll come on to the England team for the third test in a moment, but let's just talk about New Zealand first of all. Mitchell Santner probably has to play because Seddon Park is the most spinner-friendly venue of the 3 that we're playing at. So he's the specialist spinner. He's in the squad. It would make logical sense, perhaps, on form to leave Tim Southee out, but this is his home ground. He's played over 100 test matches. This is his last one. He's got almost 400 wickets. It's had a semblance of a feeling of slightly benefit tour for Tim Southee, and I know that's also harsh, but he's on his way out, so he has to play. Will Young was man of the series in India, hasn't played the first 2 test matches. Devon Conway is not playing this test. He's on paternity leave, and yet New Zealand have brought in a specialist opener, whereas I thought Will Young was the natural man to do that job.
Yeah, I'm just assuming that Will Young's going to play, and the opener, the Chapman, who's a specialist opener, he's next cab off the rank, so we pick him as cover. You can also go that if anybody in the middle order gets injured overnight, Will Young can fill in the middle order and Chapman can go up the top. So that's the only change I see in the New Zealand side. I can't fit Santner. I don't know how you can fit Santner in the team while still playing Tim. I really don't. And yes, I think it's the right thing that you let a great player that's had an unbelievable career in the way Tim Southee's gone. He should be able to finish at his home ground when it's like this. I'd be interested to see if it was 1-1 going into it, because then I don't think you could play him, because he hasn't bowled as well as Tim probably would like. But now it's 2-0. Yes, I think Southee plays. What I'll say with that is when anybody was questioning whether Jimmy Anderson should have gone on to the time he wanted to go out when they wanted him to go out, I would have said, just look at what's happening with Tim Southee and what great players from New Zealand are questioning. And really, I think some of it is really disrespectful to Tim Southee. Some of the opinions and the behaviour towards him for the career he's had. And I think England were right to go, Jimmy, you've got one and done, and that's it. Say goodbye to the greatest, and off he goes. I think dragging Tim Southee's out. I think some of the way former players are talking about Tim Southee is a bit disrespectful towards him. But I can't see, you can't drop Smith, Can't drop O'Rourke. You can't drop Henry. If you drop one of them, then I think you expose Southey a little bit more. So for me, it'll be one change. And me, it will be one change, and that'll be Young in and Conway out.
Okay, now the England team, did Rian Ahmed and Jack Leach come here just to see the sights and experience this wonderful, wonderful country? They did bring a big squad, and it'll be a little bit peculiar in some ways. 16-man squad on tour, and the same 11 plays all 3 test matches. But is that what you're picking?
Yeah, I'm picking. Sit around the room, look around. Are we all fit, lads? Yep. Off we go again. As simple as that. I mean, Carter's done brilliant. Atkinson's got better as it gone on. So has Wilkes. Bashir's done a brilliant job for the team. Shoaib's done a brilliant job for a team in times where it's been tough to bowl at a certain end. So for me, I think that's added to his education. Brilliant from Bashir. The top 7 pick itself. So as much as I want to get Potts in for what he did in Pakistan, which showed good signs, and he deserves a chance in the winter, when you've got a team 2-0 up, you really ran a home advantage. So for me, like I said before, Ben Stokes looks around the room and says to the bowlers, are we all fit? If they all say yes, then for me it's the same team.
Okay, just 2 more things to say about New Zealand. One is that there's a ski resort in Queenstown, so you don't have to come in the summer. You can go skiing. There's a whole bunch of winter activities as well. And the other thing, Harmy, is to say that for those who are intimidated by the long travel time, think of it. I don't think they think of it in the right way, because if you would say, right, you don't have to answer your phone, nobody's beck and call, you get 3 meals on 2 flights. You get to watch any movie you like. I just think that actually, when I started to think of the journey as a positive thing and adding to the experience of coming to New Zealand, I felt very differently about it. Yeah. So why, on that subject, why would you recommend to people to come to New Zealand?
Just the people, the players. Everything that's about it. You talk about the travel, the time difference it is from home as well. Your phone doesn't ring because people are asleep. Nobody rings you. I mean, when you go on holiday, you get a proper holiday, and you also get a proper experience. You get like English type weather. You get a lovely summer's day. You get a little bit of rain. So the air's fantastic to breathe. The people are, I mean, so hospitable, and just the culture of New Zealand. I mean, you look at their sporting teams and the arrogance of some of the sporting teams around the world, and the egos of sporting teams around the world are so high, it's ridiculous. And a lot of these players who have done equally and above, I'm talking about rugby and cricket and whatever as well from a New Zealand point of view, I mean, you would never think it, because they don't shout it from the rooftop. There's no egos about them. And you look at even our very own coach, Brendan McCullum. I mean, he typifies Kiwi people. He's a lovely, lovely man. He's somebody who has got a time and attention for everybody. And he was a phenomenal player. And he walks around the streets as though he'll have a conversation with the paying public, the Barmy Army, whatever travel company it wants. He's I mean, the people are very, very special at this part in the world.
Okay, just before we see the highlights of our walking tour, tell us what you thought of it, because we weren't sure what to expect. I mean, Hamilton is a beautiful natural wonder of New Zealand with the trees and the Waikato River, but I think probably not known for its history and culture. At least that's what we thought. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised, but I went in with an open mind and felt differently when I finished it, because I look at it. It was a river, there's trees, but the actual, when you went deeper into it and the monuments that were there, and you looked at the statues, you looked at the monuments, and Leslie was brilliant. His description of history. I mean, the description of history that he gave us, it goes back a hell of a long way further than I thought it did, and he opened my eyes and educated me about quite a few things, not just with New Zealand, but the sort of surrounding areas of these 2 great islands.
You're listening to the 3rd and final edition of the Following on New Zealand podcast, brought to you with talkSPORT and 100% pure New Zealand. Right, the walking tour of Hamilton has started, and our guide Leslie Tutau has brought us to the first stop on the city tour, and it's I think it commemorates, Leslie, you know, do the explanation for us, but it commemorates the agricultural skills of the Maori people who were originally from here. Is that right?
Yes. Tēnā korua, tēnā koutou. Welcome to Hamilton. Kirikiri roa. Lovely to meet you both, gentlemen. Yes, among many things, it is this sculpture behind us is a tribute to the local tribe of Ngāti Wairere and their agricultural expertise. Among many other things, it also acts as a gateway or a doorway welcoming visitors to Hamilton and to our history as well.
And also from the river's point of view, we've got a lovely seating area for sort of the town of Hamilton. People come, sit and understand what this means.
Yes, perfect. It's known as, this particular area, Victoria on the River, is known as a precinct, an entertainment, art precinct. In actual fact, these steps are a tribute to the terraced gardens that used to be along the river banks. So just like we have in this particular motif, these step designs, so too are these steps designed as a tribute to the terraced gardens of Hamilton.
I must say, just before we move on to the next site, the Waikato River is one of my favourite places in the world. It's absolutely... It's had a few problems, hasn't it, with pollution over the years, but now it's absolutely crystal clear and pure and I guess very special.
Very special to us, very special to the people of Waikato. The tribe itself, the tribe of which I'm a member, we take our name from our river. So in many respects, we consider our river as a tupuna whaia or as an ancestress. So yeah, we always do our best to respect her by keeping her clean and yes.
Well, we're going to take Harmy for a run down there before this test match is over. Right,
Lovely.
Leslie, should we move on to the next site?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Well, Leslie, we've got to the next stop. Beautiful. Can you explain what the artwork is here? Because this is new, isn't it? 2021 this was built?
Yes. This artwork behind us is called Ngā Pou Ārohirohi, which means the gleaming pillars. And as you can see there are 5 pillar-shaped pieces behind us, and they actually represent the 5 hapu or sub-tribe that link into Hamilton itself. The old name of Hamilton is Kirikiriroa, but yes, it's the 5 tribes that link, or sub-tribes that link to Hamilton or have ancestral ties. And just to name them, they are Ngāti Māhanga, also Ngāti Tama Inu Pō, Ngāti Wairere, Ngāti Koroki Kahukura, and fifth and final is Ngāti Haua. So all these 5 tribes circle and come into Hamilton to some degree. Yeah.
Leslie, I recall the last time I was in Hamilton, just on the other side of the river, there is a reminder of a very different culture. Isn't that an English warship or a British warship behind us over there?
Yes. Just over my left shoulder is the SS Rangiriri. The SS Rangiriri was part of the British fleet back in the early colonial times. According to what I've been told and what I've researched, the SS Rangiriri was completed over in New South Wales or Sydney, Australia, but then all those pieces were transported to New Zealand and built here. But with the SS Rangiriri, it never actually saw battle because the British had, in effect, won the battle before it even arrived. So, yeah. And it became a passenger ship.
Leslie, we're going to take a walk along the river. Manners keeps telling me that because he's a runner.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not. So he says it's a nice brisk walk for me.
Yes.
And he's going to think about going to run. I mean, it looks spectacular along the river. Visitors, is this part of the river, is this where they tend to flock?
Yes, it's become very popular. There is a push from both our local council and Hamilton residents to really strengthen our ties as a community back to the river, and part of that has been a series of projects which has ultimately kind of beautified the river, the river walks. So yeah, it's really, really beautiful.
It's time for another brisk walk. Well, Leslie, we're at our next stop. We've got the rowing club behind us, and what looks like half a canoe is behind us. Lovely lit up. I would imagine this would be a beautiful piece in the dark, but can you explain what this is?
I can. We're at Ferrybank Reserve, and this is Toia Mai, the name of the sculpture, Toia Mai, and it represents the tauihu, or the nose of a ceremonial war canoe. Just erected. So,
And commemorating? What, the journey here?
yeah, yes, very much so. So I was fortunate to meet the artist behind the sculpture, gentleman by the name of Joe Citizen. We met down here, and according to him, it is his tribute to the celestial navigation skills of our old Polynesian ancestors. Another significant thing is that one of the old practices is when a significant chief or chieftainess would pass away, the tribe would lay that chief or chieftainess to rest and then take their favourite waka or canoe and erect it on top of them to mark who was laying there. So.
There's writing on the inside of it. Can you just read that? Well, obviously, can you just enlighten us to what this writing, this word says? These words say.
I can. E whakawhiti atu wai te kōpū mānia o kirikiri roa me ona mārakai te ngawha whakatupu ake o te whenua mōmona.
Memorise that.
Memorise it. Yeah,
So-
I've got more chance of saying it than spelling it.
So that translates to across the smooth belly of Kirikiriroa or Hamilton, its gardens bursting with the fullness of good things. So just one more time, across the smooth belly of Kirikiriroa, its gardens bursting with the fullness of good things. Now that particular proverb or tongikura was said by our second ariki, our second king, King Tawhiao, and he was known as a philosopher poet king, and it's his tribute to the agricultural expertise of the local tribe, and in fact he's likening Hamilton or Kirikiriroa to the full belly of a pregnant lady, just like a pregnant lady sustains the people and the bloodline, so too did Kirikiriroa of old sustain the local people. So yeah,
Leslie, it's beginning to rain quite heavily, so I
Yes.
think we need to move on to the next stop.
sounds great.
Well, Leslie, we're here, fourth and final stop, a colourful monument there. On a normal warm day, I wouldn't mind going in there when the water's coming out. I bet you that is refreshing. But the name of it, Tongue of the Dog, can you explain that?
Tongue of the Dog, yes. The sculpture behind us actually tells the story of how the Waikato River, our ancestral river, came into existence in terms of lore, L-O-R-E. There was actually a dog that led the headwaters of Waikato River from the foot of Mount Ruapehu, south of Taupo, Lake Taupo, all the way from there north, all the way through different turns and bends, past Hamilton, Kirikiriroa, and further north, just in the actual the mouth of the river is just south of Auckland Airport, so known as Te Puaha or Waikato. So yeah, that's what that tells the
Leslie,
story of.
thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for the tour.
Thank you,
Brilliant,
gentlemen.
yes,
Thank you.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. So it's not only the end of our tour of Hamilton, but it's also the end of the third and final episode of the Following on New Zealand podcast, brought to you with talkSPORT and 100% pure New Zealand. Remember, go to newzealand.com to plan your New Zealand adventure.